My name is Rax and I am 65 years old. At my age, people expect you to be strong, calm, and used to life's disappointments. They think a man who has lived this long must have built thick walls around his heart. But the truth is, no matter how old you are, the words of your own family can still cut deeper than anything else. And the night my son's wife looked me in the eyes and said, "You're not invited, go away," something inside me shattered in a way I never expected. What happened that evening changed not only me, but my entire family. The quiet life after loss. 3 years earlier, my wife had passed away. Her name was Maria and she had been my companion for more than 40 years. She was the warmth in our home, the laughter in our kitchen, and the gentle voice that held our family together. When she died, the house became unbearably quiet. The ticking clock sounded louder than ever. The empty chair across from me at the dinner table felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. Some nights I would still cook for two out of habit. And then I would remember, it was just me now. The only thing that kept me moving forward was my son Daniel. Daniel was my pride. I had raised him with everything I had. When he was young, I worked long hours as a mechanic just so he could go to a good school. My hands were always covered in grease and my back often ached, but when I saw him smile, it was worth every sacrifice. Now he was grown, successful, and married. His wife's name was Laura. She was intelligent, confident, and well-spoken, but if I'm honest, she had always seemed a little uncomfortable around me. Maybe I was too simple for her world. The invitation. One Wednesday afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. "Hey Dad, we're having a family dinner this Sunday, you should come." I stared at the message for a long time. It might sound small to others, but to someone who spends most evenings alone, it meant everything. For the first time in weeks, I felt excited. Maybe this dinner would bring us closer again. Maybe Laura and I would finally talk more. Maybe the silence between us would disappear. Preparing for the evening. Sunday morning came, and I woke up earlier than usual. At 65 years old, excitement is rare, but that day I felt it. I shaved carefully and ironed my best shirt. It was a soft blue shirt that Maria had bought me many years ago. "Blue makes your eyes look kind," she used to say. Before leaving the house, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at my reflection. Wrinkles around my eyes, gray hair at my temples. But also a man who had loved deeply. "Don't make things awkward tonight, Rax," I whispered to myself, "just be kind." On the way to Daniel's house, I stopped by a small bakery. Behind the glass counter sat a beautiful apple pie. I remembered Laura mentioning once that apple pie was her favorite dessert. So I bought it. It was my small way of saying, I care about being part of this family. Arriving at the house. Daniel's home was glowing with warm light when I arrived. Cars were parked along the street. Through the windows, I could see people talking, laughing, and moving around the dining room. The smell of roasted chicken drifted through the air. For a moment, it reminded me of the old days when Maria used to host family dinners. My heart filled with quiet happiness. I walked up the steps and knocked on the door. A few seconds later, it opened. Laura stood there. The moment everything changed. At first, she looked surprised. Then her expression slowly changed. Not happy. Not welcoming. Just uncomfortable. Her eyes dropped to the apple pie in my hands. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I smiled gently. "Daniel invited me." Her lips tightened. She stepped outside and pulled the door halfway closed behind her. "We didn't expect you," she said. For a moment I thought she was joking. But she wasn't smiling. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "Maybe Daniel forgot to tell you." Laura shook her head. "No, this dinner is mainly for my family." Her words felt colder than the evening air. "You should go home," she added quietly. I blinked in confusion. "I don't understand." Then she said the sentence that echoed in my mind for weeks. "You're not invited, Rax, please leave." The silent walk. I stood there for several seconds. Inside the house I could hear laughter. Someone opened a bottle of wine. My own son was just a few steps away, yet I felt like a stranger standing outside. I looked down at the apple pie in my hands. The gift suddenly felt meaningless. "All right," I said softly. Laura nodded and went back inside. The door closed. And just like that, I was alone. The long drive. I walked back to my car slowly. The porch light behind me flickered as the door shut completely. When I sat inside the car, I didn't start the engine right away. Instead, I stared at the pie sitting on the passenger seat. I had bought it to make someone smile. But now it just reminded me that sometimes kindness isn't enough. Finally, I started driving. Not toward home. Just driving. A small act of kindness. After about 20 minutes, I pulled over near a small park. On a bench nearby sat an elderly couple holding hands. They looked tired but peaceful. I picked up the apple pie and walked toward them. "Excuse me," I said. They looked up. "Would you like this?" I asked, holding out the pie. The woman looked surprised. "Are you sure?" I smiled. "Yes." Her husband chuckled warmly. "Well, that's the nicest surprise we've had all week." They thanked me again and again. And strangely, their happiness healed a small piece of the pain inside me. The phone call. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Daniel. "Dad, where are you?" he asked. "At home," I replied calmly. "Well, why didn't you come to dinner?" There was a pause. "I did come," I said. "What do you mean?" I took a slow breath. "Laura told me to leave." Silence filled the line. Then Daniel said quietly. "She said what?" "Confrontation." 40 minutes later, there was a loud knock on my door. When I opened it, Daniel stood there. His face was pale with anger. Behind him stood Laura. Daniel looked at me with guilt in his eyes. "Dad, I'm so sorry." Then he turned to Laura. "Tell him what happened." Laura shifted uncomfortably. "I made a mistake." Daniel shook his head. "You told my father he wasn't welcome." She finally looked at me. "I thought you might feel uncomfortable around my parents," she said. "I didn't want things to be awkward." I smiled sadly. "I've been awkward my whole life," I said, "but I've never turned away family." The turning point. Daniel placed his hand on my shoulder. "Dad," he said firmly, "you will always be welcome in my home." Laura looked down. "I'm sorry, Rax," she whispered. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then I said the only thing that mattered. "Families make mistakes," I said gently. "What matters is whether we learn from them." A different dinner. The following Sunday, Daniel invited me again. This time, Lyra opened the door with a small, nervous smile. "Welcome, Rax." Inside, a chair waited for me at the dinner table. And on the kitchen counter, there was an apple pie. Laura pointed to it shyly. "I tried baking one myself." I laughed. "Well then, tonight is already better than the last." The lesson. Life at 65 teaches you something important. People will hurt you. Even the ones you love. But forgiveness has the power to rebuild what pride destroys. That night reminded my family of something simple but powerful. Respect is the foundation of every family. Without it, even the most beautiful house can feel empty. Moral of the story. Never forget the people who stood beside you when you were young and helpless. One day they will grow old, and they will need your kindness more than ever. Respect your parents. Because the day may come when their chair at the table is empty. And the silence they leave behind will be louder than any words. My name is Rax. I am 65 years old. And the night I was told to leave my own son's dinner taught my family the true meaning of respect, forgiveness, and love.